Ever wonder why some people make game changing choices while others settle for the obvious? Welcome to the Founder Mindset, Episode 6, How Successful People Actually Think. I'm Maya, and with me is Pranay Mahendrakar, AI founder and strategy thinker. If you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming.
Hey, thanks for having me, Maya. Let's dive right in. I love that question. It hits the core of my promise. You'll walk away with thinking tools that change how you decide.
Let's start with a framing. In your view, what is the biggest misconception people have about decision making?
Good question. People think intelligence alone gives great decisions, but we all learn the same information. The difference comes from the tools in our head. If you use a mental framework, every decision becomes data driven.
So, those four frameworks you mentioned first principles, opportunity cost, long term thinking, and leverage are they separate or interlinked?
They're like layers. First principles is the foundation, opportunity cost is the lens on trade offs, long term thinking questions, time relevance, and leverage amplifies impact across all layers.
Let's unpack first principles then. What's a concrete example you can share from your AI work?
Imagine building a large language model. The surface idea is copy an existing architecture. First principle says strip it to core truths. What makes natural language real? The truth is context and probability. Rebuild from that. Start with token embeddings, then layer transformers tuned for context windows. You are not borrowing, you are creating.
Sounds heavy. How do you apply this to everyday decisions like choosing a product idea?
Break the problem. What's truly needed by your market? Say you're designing a budgeting app. Truths people want simplicity, data sync, privacy. Rebuild. Start with a single screen interface that pulls data from bank APIs securely. You skip needless features because they aren't fundamentals.
Got it. Moving on to opportunity cost. How do you quantify the real cost of a yes?
Look at each yes as a slot on a calendar. The real cost is what you gave up. If you spend an hour on social media, the real cost could be 2 hours of code or networking. Quantify it by asking how much value would that alternative generate. If it's higher than the current task's payoff, rethink.
So it's like a cost benefit analysis but at a more granular level.
Exactly, instead of vague feeling, you map each activity to an expected value metric, revenue potential, skill growth, network depth. Then compare numbers.
Now, the long term thinking model, people say focus on urgency first. How do you challenge that?
Ask whether it matters in 10 years. If the answer is no, likely its weight now is low. For instance, spending a day fixing a minor bug on a legacy product may not matter long term. Allocating time to learning new frameworks will.
Could you give a real case?
Sure, in 2016, I could have spent months building a feature for an app, but I chose to learn Kubernetes. 10 years later, that knowledge scaled my entire operations and saved millions.
That's powerful and leverage. The last tool, how does it work in practice?
Leverage is about multiplying effort. Code, for example, write a function once, deploy to thousands. Think of a library, one developer's code touches millions without daily involvement. The key is building reusable units.
So instead of doing the same task repeatedly, you create a template or tool that others can use.
Exactly, in business, this could be a shared knowledge base or a standardized sales process. The leverage factor is often exponential. One effort becomes many outcomes.
Your example of Aadhaar was striking. How did those frameworks apply there?
Aadhaar required first principles. No template exists for identity at that scale. So they started with the truth. Each citizen's biometric data is unique and immutable. Opportunity cost forced them to forego faster, cheaper pilot programs in favor of robust design. Long term thinking ensured a 10-year vision for governance. Leverage came from building a single system whose code runs daily across millions.
That ties it together nicely. If you had to give founders a 3 step action guide to install these tools, what would it be?
Step 1, map each decision to the four lenses. Start with first principles, then check opportunity cost. Ask 10-year relevance and look for leverage. Step 2, quantify each lens. For example, estimate potential revenue from an opportunity and the effort multiplier of a labor. Step 3, commit, write the framework on paper or in your notes and revisit after implementation to adjust based on results.
Final quick question. What's one common mistake you see founders make when trying to adopt these tools?
They treat frameworks like a checklist rather than an iterative habit. The first principles mindset takes practice. You are not just answering yes no but re asking the core question each time.
Right? You need to keep questioning. Thanks so much for sharing these deep insights, Pranay. So, Pranay, I'm curious when you first started using first principles in your projects, what did that feel like compared to the usual problem solving method?
Good, good question. When I was building my first AI model, I was used to following a tutorial step by step, assuming it worked because others did. But I paused and asked, what is the underlying principle that makes this work? That led me to realize that data augmentation wasn't just a trick, it was about increasing the entropy of training samples. Then I rewrote the pipeline from scratch, optimizing for entropy instead of following the tutorial.
That sounds intense. What's one practical tip you'd give someone stuck in that tutorial mindset?
Okay, so here's a quick trick. Pick one variable and break it into its raw components. For example, if you're adding a layer to a neural net, ask yourself what computation it really performs, not just add more layers. Once you have the basic math, any architecture can be tuned.
Let's switch gears. Opportunity cost is such a big deal. How do founders realistically quantify that?
Right, you need numbers. I start by listing every possible project, then assigning a simple dollar value to the revenue or impact each could generate in 1 year. Then subtract what you'd gain from not doing each other project. The difference is the opportunity cost. Think of it as the rent you lose when parking your car elsewhere.
And how do you avoid the temptation to chase the next shiny idea?
Good question. I create a scorecard, impact, effort multiplier, and time horizon. If an idea scores high on impact but low on leverage, I deprioritize it unless I can bundle it with another task.
That ties into long term thinking. How do you train yourself to keep the 10-year view alive?
Look, I schedule a quarterly review where I revisit all pending decisions and ask, will this matter in 10 years? If the answer is no, it probably belongs on a waiting list or gets eliminated entirely.
Speaking of leverage, what's the biggest lever you found that scales effort without scaling hours?
I love automation. For example, I built an API once and deployed it to thousands of clients. The code is static. Each new client is just a configuration change, no new coding required.
If I wanted to start building that kind of lever early in my startup, where should I focus first?
Pick the recurring pain point your product solves, then make the solution modular. Think of it as creating a plugin architecture. Once you publish the core module, customers can extend it without you lifting another finger.
Now, I need a quick pause from you for our listeners. Could they hit subscribe or share if this is useful?
Sure thing. If you're enjoying these frameworks, give us a follow or drop a comment. It helps others find the episode.
Thanks. That was great. Back to the questions. Can we talk about how first principles differ from normal hypothesis testing?
Good question. A hypothesis is often built on existing assumptions. First principles strip those away. You only keep what can be proved mathematically or empirically true. That means you're not biased by precedent.
How does that translate into faster product iterations?
Because when you base your iteration on a clean set of truths, you avoid reinventing the wheel each time. For example, instead of re implementing authentication, I leveraged OAuth's proven security model, saving weeks.
What about opportunity cost? Can it be applied outside funding decisions?
Absolutely think of hiring. If you hire a senior engineer versus a junior, the opportunity cost isn't just salary, it's the advanced features. The senior can ship in half the time.
Can you share an anecdote where ignoring one of these lenses backfired?
Sure, I once convinced myself that adding more marketing channels would linearly grow sales. That ignored opportunity cost. Those extra spenders could have funded a new product. The result was diminishing returns and cash burn.
You mentioned leverage as the founder's favorite trick. What's an underrated lever most founders overlook?
Open source contributions. By publishing a useful library, you get users who test, suggest improvements, and even use it in their own products. Free user acquisition and validation.
That's eye opening. Finally, how do you keep your team aligned around these four lenses?
I embed them into the decision checklist for every major move. Every board meeting starts with a slide titled Lens Check. If any lens is weak, we pause and reevaluate.
Great, let's recap. What would you say are the three key takeaways from today?
First, treat frameworks as habits, not checklists. Revisit them after action. Second, quantify opportunity cost with simple numbers so it becomes a visible trade off. Third, build modular leverage into your product. From day one, think plugins and APIs.
Pranay, thank you for all the practical gold today. If you liked this episode, give us a follow or share with someone who could use a new way of thinking. Next week, we'll dive into scaling teams while keeping culture intact. Until then, stay curious, keep questioning, and remember you're listening to the founder mindset.